Hey, my name's Tanner with Proteus. Today we're going to do a deep dive of the Cressey Performance Test on Proteus and the ins and outs and things to be aware of. Before we get started, here are a few things to keep in mind. The first step you're going to encounter when doing the power test is calibrating your start and end positions. We're going to cover this in great detail over the course of this video. Just want to highlight that at the beginning. The second thing to keep in consideration is having the athlete test the range of motion prior to beginning the test. That way you're making sure that they're operating within the parameters of Proteus and not running into the end ranges. And then third, this is a test of peak power, so make sure you give it everything you got. If you don't think that you reached your peak power or you messed up during the calibration of the set, you can hit the restart feature on Proteus and that will bring you right back to the beginning of that movement, so you can repeat it and try it again. Next, let's run through the Cressey Performance Test. Once you get the handle attachment installed on the machine, making sure that it is securely fastened, what we're going to do is we're going to run through the test following the instructions on screen. I'm going to give a couple of coaching cues for each one. So the first one we're going to be doing is a chest press and horizontal row. We're going to hit the big blue button on the screen. We're also going to be able to control everything from the kiosk on the Bluetooth controller via the big blue button. So we're going to confirm that we're doing the right side first, as I'm a right-handed athlete. For this test, we're going to do it in split stance, and we're going to start the move back in a row position. We're going to push forward, pause at the front. You hear the machine beep. We're going to return to the start. That way now we're going to know that the test is calibrated and we're ready to perform. Okay? We're going to do explosive movements, pausing at each end range. Making sure not to overly rotate and hit the housing of the machine, but staying within the parameters that we set at the beginning. All right. Once you've finished the right side, we're going to do the exact same thing on the left side. You'll notice that the machine Proteus gives a lot of feedback right after you finish the test. We're not going to talk about that in this video. However, that is something as a coach you can keep an eye on when doing something with the athlete to kind of check their trend lines and or as part of your assessment process. So we're setting up on the left side. We're going to start back in that row position. Once again, make sure that your athlete has enough room with this motion, that they're not hitting the end range at the housing or hitting the back of the machine pulled all the way out. You'll hear the machine beep when we start the first part of the movement. We'll hear it again. Come back to the starting position, and then we're going to run through that test. Okay. Next, we're going to do the classic movement, straight arm trunk rotation. This one is going to be important in setting it up. Once you get acquainted with how to set this up, it's going to be fairly easy, and the same premise on creating these invisible fields for the start and end position carry on with every measured test movement that you'll do on Proteus. So the way Proteus is going to register my core is that we got a line down the center of our body. We're going to be testing my right side core first. So to do that, what we're going to do is we're going to start over on the left hand side. Once again, we're going to make sure that we got plenty of range of motion, so make sure your athletes aren't standing too far back or too far forward to where they might hit the front of the machine. So just have the athlete get a feel for that movement first. And then when you're ready and they're ready, you're going to start on the left-hand side, hit your start button, move over to the other side, pause, once again following the directions on screen. Once you're ready to start the test, you're going to do an explosive movement to the other side, pause, since we're just doing the straight arm trunk rotation variation. Okay. And that's going to be registering both sides at the same time. I mentioned that we were starting on the right. However, once the test knows that we're doing this specific movement, it's going to also then register us on the return side of things. So we're actually registering right-sided power and left-sided power in this movement. Now, we're gonna go to the straight arm plyo trunk rotation. This one trips people up a little bit on how to start. However, you're gonna set the test up the exact same way, that first rep to let the machine know which side you're doing. And then we're gonna change up the movement just a little. You'll see here in just a sec. The athlete's staying in that same position. We're gonna set this movement first, starting on the left, moving to the right. The big difference here is we're gonna come to the middle, and this is where we're gonna start the test at. So what the athlete's gonna do then is they're gonna load into the left and explode to the right and come back. Load again, reset. We're going to do that exact same thing on the other side. Since this is the plyometric version, we're going to have to do the left side since we have that pause in between. Once again, if you have taller athletes, make sure that they're on the back end of that row, not hitting like the end range of the machine. So since we're doing my left side, we're going to start over on my right, set my range of motion, back to the middle. Now I'm going to load and explode from one side to the other. Next is going to be D2 flexion and extension. With this one, the athlete is going to go through what is similar to a throwing motion, but obviously it's not a throw. You're going to want to make sure that the athlete has enough room. They're not hitting the front end range of the position of the machine or banging into the end range. That applies for all movements. Have the athlete try the movement first and make sure that they're ready to proceed. Once we're ready, we're going to do my right side first. I'm going to follow the prompts on screen. I'm going to start down across my body. Start button, up to the top, pause, back to the beginning. And now I'm going to pause each direction, but I'm going to give it with intent now that we're being tested. We'll repeat that exact same thing on the left. All right, so now that we've done my right, we're gonna quickly go through this on the left. Once again, athlete checks to make sure that they got the range of motion. It's also a little opportunity for the athlete to get warmed and feel comfortable with the movement. Starting at the bottom, up to the top, pause, back to the bottom to get ready to start. Now I'm on test reps. Next, we're going to do the lateral bound. A couple things to keep in mind here. Since athletes are going to be doing a jump variation through an upper extremity implement, it's important to keep your hands on the handle close to your chest. Typically, we'll lay out cones or some tape on the floor to give the athlete kind of a trajectory in which to jump. This helps keep them in the spheres. A lot of times kids will drift forward or backwards, and we'll have to restart the test. So once we start in a second, I'll make an error on purpose so that you can see how that works. So I'm gonna start out on my right side, hit the beginning button. I'm gonna jump to the left, pause. We're not worried about the landing so the athlete can come reset again. I'm gonna jump back to the right, and then you would begin the test. Let's say the athlete jumped too far forward. When they jump across again, the machine didn't beep. So as a coach, you could steer them back on direction. However, a lot of times the athlete will get lost. In this case, this is a great time to restart the test. So what we're gonna do is it comes right back to that beginning screen for this movement. And we gotta run through that setup process one more time. So we're on that right. We're gonna jump to the left. Pause, jump to the right, and this one we're going to run through. Next, this is a lot of people's favorite. This is shot put. What we're gonna do, sometimes this is a little tricky to get set up, but it's really not that hard. First, we're gonna make sure that the athlete has the range of motion so they can run through the movement, make sure they feel comfortable. This test is done at 18 pounds, which is gonna be a little higher than some of the other movements. So just make sure that the athlete is aware. Since it's my right side, we're gonna start back in this loaded punch position. This is our starting position. Then we're gonna punch forward, pause, that's our in range, come back to the middle, and now you're ready to go. The big thing you're gonna do is load in and then explode out. Back to the middle, pause. This one, try to get your full body into it. Now we're gonna do the left side. Shot put, loading in that back position, start position, go to our end, pause, set in the middle, load, and then explode. Next, what we're gonna do is we're gonna switch our attachments out. We're gonna add on the bar attachment. So we're at our last movement, the vertical jump. This one's gonna be important to get set up. Typically we'll coach our athletes to hold the bar with a Zercher grip and then just lay their arms over top. That allows them to do the movement without getting a lot of excessive arm movement with the jump. So we're gonna start it. We're gonna go down to the bottom, hold. We're gonna stand up and move our arms up just a little bit to set that invisible sphere up a little higher because we actually wanna create a little bit of space between the two spheres. Then we're gonna come back to our start position, go back to the Zercher. Since this is a counter movement and then reset each time, we're gonna do the jump, land upright, reset your feet, and then go again. Making sure some athletes will kind of fall forward when they do this, making sure that they come back to that exact same starting point each time. All right. Again, 2 quick tips for that vertical jump. 1, making sure that the athlete's not getting too much excessive movement with the arms. And then the other one is when the orb is set at the bottom and you jump up, if the athlete then comes down and lands down in that squat, they're gonna trip the start position of the next jump. That could be an indication to hit the redo set or have your athletes do the jump, land a little bit more upright, regather themselves, and then do the next move. Thanks everybody for joining for this entirety of the video. We get a lot of questions about how this test is performed specifically, especially at CSP, and this is how we do it with all the coaching cues and or errors that we're making sure to look at.